Welcome to our 2014 Privacy Forum as part of Privacy Week, as we call it in New Zealand, Privacy Awareness Week and other parts of the Asia-Pacific region. This is a coordinated effort between Australia-Pacific privacy authorities to bring the focus of a bit of community discussion to data protection, privacy, respect for privacy, and the regulatory frameworks. Please turn your phones off. Or at least onto silent. I will. This is my first Privacy Forum as a Privacy Commissioner. I've been to many as just one of the herd, like you, and as speaker and participant and observer. And I've always enjoyed the opportunity to come together with people who are interested in this area. And I'm encouraged by your desire to know more about what's happening in privacy at the moment and how that's likely to change in the months ahead. I hope that this morning will canvass some of the privacy challenges and themes and renew your commitment to highlighting good privacy practice as a priority in your workplaces. I need to acknowledge the support of Symantec as a sponsor of this event. The morning tea that you're going to enjoy is thanks to them. Just a couple of housekeeping items first. We will be videoing the conference and broadcasting that on our website. So bear in mind that you may be recorded if you ask a question. So if you would prefer not to be, please indicate that as you rise or as you take the microphone. Otherwise, you could be a YouTube star. There's Wi-Fi here, so feel free to log in. We're not going to be all uptight about people gazing at their devices. We'll assume you're looking at the Twitter stream. The Wi-Fi password is Privacy 2014, so Privacy 2014. If you're using Twitter, I would encourage you to use the PAW 2014, that's PAW 2014 hashtag, and we'll be able to see your comments throughout the morning. We don't have a Twitter fall because I find those a little bit distracting because this is your focus. But you can sort of log in and follow what's going. How many people here are on Twitter, by the way, just as a check? A few? Okay, good one. And the rest of you will be by the end of the day. That's where all the fun happens. Oops. Actually, the Prime Minister's told us not to, hasn't he? The men's and women's toilets are outside to the right, and in the unlikely event of an emergency, please follow the instructions of the hotel staff. Now, into the privacy stuff. It's a really exciting time for me to be taking up the position of Privacy Commissioner with an unprecedented level of public interest in privacy and heightened anxiety over and concern with privacy and its seeming diminution in the public and private sphere. Why is this? Well, we've seen how Edward Snowden and the NSA have put privacy on the global agenda, and this has prompted a raft of questions about how safe and private is our information, especially the information that we share and store online. Meanwhile, back in New Zealand, a clutch of other acronyms such as GCSB, ACC, EQC, MSD has ensured that privacy has rarely been out of the headlines at home. And it's not just a government thing. The private sector has also been playing its part in keeping privacy on the front pages of news websites and newspapers and near the top of bulletins and programs. We've seen Telecom Yahoo email breach, hacks at LinkedIn and Adobe, and we've all come to live with Facebook's mercurial privacy settings. These shocks and changes are coming at us every day, and cumulatively, many commentators and journalists are reporting it as an endless recycling of the "is privacy dead" story. I don't think privacy is dead in any shape or form, but we can perhaps make it easier to maintain. You might have heard me talk about this before. It's become a sort of a theme or mission statement for me, which is I want to, in my tenure, to make privacy easy. Privacy should be easy for Privacy Act should be easy for business and government to comply with. I want to make it easy for consumers to access privacy-friendly options, and for the wronged or harmed to have easy access to the remedies provided by the law. There's plenty of evidence to show that organisations that have put good privacy practices in place gain the respect and trust of the public. But the opposite is also true. People become cynical of organisations that get found out time and time again for breaching public trust. when people lose faith and confidence, they start to give as little of their truthful information as possible. And if possible, they look for another provider that can give them greater security and peace of mind. If you're dealing with compulsory services like government, you don't have that option to exit. The protection of people's personal privacy has become an important distinguishing feature of the way many organisations do business. This is borne out in our latest UMR survey, which the office has commissioned every couple of years for many years now. We ask questions about individual privacy and personal information, and our survey came out on Monday. You can find it on our website. The results show that New Zealanders are increasingly aware of and concerned about privacy, especially information held about them by government agencies, by businesses and online providers. 1 in 2 New Zealanders now say they are becoming more concerned about privacy issues. This is the highest yet recorded level in our 2-yearly tracking survey. But if you look at the graphs produced by UMR in the materials, you can find that that's actually a trend that has continued unabated since the surveys began. 80% of New Zealanders say they are concerned about the security of their own information on the internet. We know that people are concerned about the amount and type of information that young people put online. We know this intuitively, and the survey results have backed that up consistently over the years. In this year's findings, we see that 4 out of 5 New Zealanders say they are concerned about information children put on the internet about themselves. We know that young people share more of their lives online. We've drawn the assumption that young people are less concerned about privacy. But is that a mistaken assumption? Our results indicate that young people do care about protecting their personal information. The proportion of young people under 30 who report becoming more concerned about privacy has jumped from 17% in 2012 to 50% 2 years later. And in a recent American study, 60% of the 14 to 18-year-olds surveyed told the researchers they didn't like things that last forever online. One of the themes that emerged from our survey is a feeling of a lack of control. 37% of respondents do not feel in control of the way businesses use their information. A third of New Zealanders say they do not feel in control of the way government agencies use and protect their information. We also undertook some qualitative research with focus groups in different centres, and participants made comments about interacting with government. One said, "You don't have a choice because if you want to get what you want, then you have to share your information and hope they won't release it." Another participant said, "I think you are basically stuck there because you are in a position where you need to give them the information if you want their service." And the picture is worse in terms of social networking. 54% do not feel in control of the way social networking services use their information. And social networking providers came right at the bottom of a list of organisations that respondents trusted. A focus group participant said, "You almost feel that people get caught out because they change the privacy settings so many times that they're almost trying to deceive people because it is quite complicated really to nail it down." Maybe that's the object. You remember Telecom's pricing structure that was revealed in an unguarded moment by the chief executive a few years ago. Complication for consumers makes it better for the suppliers. And yet Facebook's growth has grown from 14% in 2007 to 61% in 2014. If you're looking for seats, anyone, there's still a few at the front here. 3 out of 5 respondents are now using Facebook, but there's another change. There's a growing level of social media literacy among New Zealanders. 3 out of 4 New Zealanders say that they have changed their privacy settings on their Facebook page. Thought that was interesting. Later this morning, we'll be exploring these themes further in social networking and online behaviour, and you'll be hearing from Martin Cocker of NetSafe and Val Hooper from Victoria University. This is an area of work that couldn't have been envisaged by the architects of the Privacy Act in 1993. Almost no one used the internet in 1993, and today, 21 years on, almost everyone does. In that time, we've seen huge technology-driven changes and challenges to privacy. The Privacy Act was reviewed by the Law Commission in recent years, and it made comprehensive and well-founded recommendations on changing the law. We are hopeful that the government will advance those recommendations and believe we are close to a much-needed renewal of the Privacy Act. I don't know if you've been coming to these things for a few years, but it's not the same speech. But we are expecting that the overall impact of the proposed reforms will be to give my office stronger investigative powers, the authority to order that information be given to people, which is a really significant one, because over 60% of the complaints that come to my office are in relation to requests for access. You know, it's the security breaches, the emailed spreadsheets, the heartbleeds that grabs the headlines. But what is really important and core in privacy is people's ability to find out what you've got on them and to get that in a timely way. So that's going to be something of a focus for me. And those are powers that I'm eager to get my hands onto. And we will have the power, hopefully, if the Law Commission's recommendations are followed, to order agencies to fix privacy problems. Another significant change forecast is a likely shift to mandatory breach notification. Currently, the Privacy Commissioner depends on voluntary breach notification and on goodwill and compliance of agencies to alert us if there's been a data breach. A law change may not mean the end of spreadsheets going to the wrong recipients, but we'll have to be notified when it does happen. And, you know, we've seen a couple of... there's a lot of good reasons for breach notification. Many of them will be obvious to you. But for me, it's really important to know what's happening in the sector. And we had a really interesting illustration of the value of the notification process recently when somebody told us about a particular problem with a server that had been exploited by a hacker who was trying to extract some benefit for himself for having disclosed the matter. And having a central point for that disclosure to be made meant that we could consider whether this is something that we needed to inform the wider community of, or targeted members of the community and system administrators involved in similar systems. So, you know, that's one of the reasons I think that breach notification potentially can make a significant difference in security and privacy. Another development that I just wanted to touch on briefly is the establishment of the Government Chief Privacy Officer. That's an administrative role, doesn't require legislation, and has made some progress, including the appointment of an incumbent. For the first time, there'll be a centralised leadership across government, and you know, I think that's crucial. We're going to hear more about that role in our final session this morning with Colin McDonald, who's the Chief Executive of the Department of Internal Affairs and the Government Chief Information Officer, and Ryan Coe of Waikato University, together with Ruth Russell of Ernst & Young. They're going to discuss managing information security and privacy and the role of the GCPO. The kiosk breach at MSD was the subject of a GCIO report that revealed systemic weaknesses in the way privacy and security has been managed across the government sector. The consequences of bad management of information are self-evident: hostile media coverage, reputational damage, loss of public trust, and harm caused to people. The success of the Government Chief Privacy Officer will depend on the extent of support and uptake by other government departments. I, for one, am looking forward to working with the GCPO, and I hope that that office will be widely supported across the public sector, despite the fact that it doesn't bring any amendments to the State Sector Act, which require and entitle government departments to take their own steps to manage risk and so on. It is going to be a singular and important opportunity for government to invest in a resource once and use it many times, rather than investing significantly over and over again in every organisation. Before that session, we're going to have a chat about what used to be called signals intelligence and is now security and surveillance. And this is, we're going to be joined by the Director of the Government Communications Security Bureau, Ian Fletcher. I applaud Ian's willingness to be here today to talk about the GCSB and its work. It's very important. I mean, this is against a backdrop of heightened suspicion about intelligence agencies and the legal framework they work within. I mentioned the NSA and Edward Snowden earlier, and they will no doubt be a feature in that discussion. The balance between security and personal privacy has been an evolving one, and this is a terrific opportunity to get a first-hand New Zealand perspective. And, you know, I think that there's been a lot of misinformation and misplaced anxiety in this space. It was really revealing to me in our UMR survey that almost half of the survey participants reported a concern about surveillance by international intelligence agencies. So that's not even domestic intelligence agencies. Now, I'm sure there are people who will have a contrary view in the audience. I'm not looking at you, Thomas. But there's no way that proportion of concern and anxiety is reflected in the actual activities of international intelligence agencies. You know, half. They don't care about you. I'm sorry. I'm pretty sure that's true. In our first session, we'll be talking about information sharing and data privacy. We'll be looking at the emergence of e-government as a force in people's lives. As governments increasingly move towards engaging with the public online, people need to have confidence and trust that the systems that hold their information are secure and that their information is respected. Trust and confidence is an essential foundation of a well-functioning public sector and economy. Respect for privacy and personal information is essential for the maintenance of that trust and confidence. Miriam Lips of Victoria University will tell us about the work of the Data Futures Forum and her own recent research on New Zealanders' attitudes to managing their online information. And Miriam's been working in this area for many years, and so her research will have built on earlier surveys and research, and I'm expecting to hear some interesting results about attitudes and behaviours online. Nowhere is trust more important than the health sector. Health information is about as personal and private as it gets. One of the issues that patients and the public have little idea about what is being done with their health information. Privacy needs transparency. The longer that public uncertainty and ignorance persist, the worse the potential fallout. This returns to the earlier theme of the lack of transparency about the activities of intelligence agencies and the growth of anxiety and concern to fill that void. I think the New Zealand Health Information Strategy's idea of keeping rich information where it is collected in primary care and passing anonymised information up the chain for analysis is a good one. But it relies on keeping the trust of the primary care sector and of the public. And I'm looking forward to hearing more about how this happens when we're joined by Graham Osborne of the National Health IT Board in Evelyn Waring's session to follow. I'm going to take the opportunity too in this Privacy Forum at Privacy Week to launch a couple of products or to announce some resources that are available. We've developed a data safety toolkit, which is a new online resource which has guidance, case notes and tips on how to prevent and deal with data breaches. So I commend that to you. I don't think we've put a copy in your folder, but it is available on our website from today. Also, particularly of interest to lawyers and researchers in this area, the International Privacy Law Library is a collection of privacy law resources that's a remarkable and comprehensive online space that all privacy professionals should have a look at. Getting good information about privacy is one of my priorities for my term as well, and building the capacity in the advisory sector to give sensible, pragmatic advice about how to achieve business and government objectives in a way that is respectful of privacy. It's very important to me. So building these resources and making them available to you is important. So you can find out about the Data Safety Toolkit and the International Privacy Law Library on our homepage, which is privacy.org.nz. Look, thanks again for coming. I'll pop up and down again from time to time and maybe have a couple of words to say at the end. I hope you have an enjoyable and informative time. I encourage you to wave your hand around for questions. If you don't feel like standing up and being filmed, and you have access to a Twitter account, fire off a tweet with the hashtag PAW2014 on it, and someone will pick it up and convey that to a chair, presuming you've got an anonymous account. Sensible questions. I did have a good one. I tweeted the other day, I'm going to have Ian Fletcher, Director of the GCSB, on what should I ask him, which elicited a range, shall I say. My favourite, I think, was ask him, would he rather fight 100 duck-sized horses or one horse-sized duck? I'll leave you with that.